Joining me now to examine whether the party will still have enough time under the provisions of the Electoral Act 2026 in Nigeria to resolve its disputes, reorganize its structures, and participate meaningfully in the polls is Professor Okey Ikechukwu. Is the Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. Very warm welcome, Prof, to Newsnight.
Thank you very much.
I mean, with that intro, do you think time is on the side of the People's Democratic Party for reconciliation, stop other litigations and the rest? We heard that the Turaki-led PDP is heading to the Supreme Court. Is there time enough for them?
They don't have time for political games, but they have enough time if they want to take part in the next elections. And the way forward is simple. There are rules of engagement. If you're going to contest to produce your candidate, etc., if they head to the Supreme Court, heaven knows when that case, even with accelerated hearing, whoever wins will have those he defeated as enemies. I understand you don't go to the court and come out as friends. So what I think the PDP should do, which is what Saraki has suggested, is they're saying bury the hatchet. I think there's no hatchet to bury. Deflate the egos. This is also a quarrel among men who, I want to show you I'm a big boy, this is the position this person should get, etc. They should sit down and answer 3 questions. Do we want to be part of this election as a strongest opposition party that can displace APC? If the answer is yes, the next question is what is it we're going to do? We must have candidates, we must have campaigns, we must not have internal rancor. Question number 3, assuming we deal with these 2 factors, what is the third one? How do we mobilize for elections?
And that mobilization involves the e-registration, I mean, which is part of the latest guidelines now, and it's time-bound.
That's what I'm saying.
Then secondly, deflating the ego, puts the ego aside and the rest. I mean, one man looms large in PDP today. I'm talking of the FCT minister, Nyesom Wike, who in several interviews, in even one that I was part of, said categorically the party isn't going to present a presidential candidate. How germane is that for a party that ruled for 16 years, became the main opposition party, and for some people is in disarray now?
Yes, there's nothing surprising in that. Already, PDP showed it's not a serious party during the last elections. To have Nyesom Wike completely bury it in Port Harcourt, and after the election, Wike was not suspended. Since after that, which is going to 3 years now,
They had the court injunction, remember?
Yes, I know. But in all of that, the question you ask yourself, after what played out in Rivers State in the last elections, after all that Wike had been going on, apparently in PDP, but appearing not to be in PDP. So the party could not muster leadership strength to say, get out of here. That's my question number 1. Number 2, you look at the party itself, look, let's even leave Wike, because Wike is not really the problem of the party. Leading up to last election, one of the most destructive influences on the PDP, in my view, is Atiku Abubakar, with all due respect to the gentleman. What do you think is the feeling? Was the feeling, and is still the feeling of those who felt that that election was a chance for the PDP to give the South a chance, particularly the Southeast? Many of them fled. Those of them who didn't leave because they had nowhere to go maintained a subtle attitude of anti-party activities. That is one strong, devastating influence. And you ask yourself, since after that election, has the PDP been building cohesion? No. There's only been quarrel among big men. A political party with men who have the dignity to still be embarrassed could not hold their neck, could not take a decision, and it will stand. And they say it's Wike. Look, it's a shell. I said it before, I think, on this program, if not, but I still on Arise and some other stations. The PDP will participate in the next election, but it will not contest. A contest means preparedness and ability with the possibility of winning because you're doing the right thing. Okay, we've come for a wrestling match, and you've trained and prepared for wrestling, and have gone and prepared on how to row a boat. I'm not preparing for the same contest. They're dealing with somebody who outsmarted all of them before he became president without state resources. Now he has state resources. Now they are gulping up the parties. Of course, that will create problems for them. And PDP is pretending it's an opposition. When in fact, all the steps is taken in the name of opposition, with all due respect, can be described as scandalous. There's no internal cohesion.
Is there still...
There's no mobilization outside what you hear about big men talking. Where is the PDP outside Abuja and outside the quarrels about the big men who want positions? That's the challenge.
Is there still an opposition party in Nigeria?
It is rumored that there is one.
No.
I don't like rumor mongering.
No. But when you look at the situation, virtually all the governors of the PDP are gone. Just Makinde and Bala Mohammed left because they are not, seeking re-elections again. And some political thoughts, would say that, look, the future of those governors who still seek elections, they are safeguarding it. That's why they are moving to the ruling party and the rest. But must they move to the ruling party? How about the other parties, fringe parties? I mean, we saw Senator Seriake Dixon formed his own party, NDC, standing strong and tall.
You see, in power politics, you don't get delusional. You look at the variables on the table, you look at the operating environment, you ask yourself, what cards can I play here? If you like grandstand, you see, the game of football is about, if it's a football match, it's about winning and going home with the cup. Now, our teams have played, and at some point, you dribbled 8 to 9 people. Everybody was clapping. It falls on the entertainment. And you may have dribbled so well throughout the 90 minutes, but in the end, we see another group going home with the cup. That's what those who call themselves opposition should realize. That's what the obedience and the rest of them should realize. It's not about whether you're popular. Strategic preparedness, strategic engagement, understanding of what needs to be done to get power. Now, on the question of whether there's opposition, what you're calling the opposition is losing all its members to the governing party. That's number one. So in terms of numbers, it doesn't have people to oppose, with whom to oppose anybody. Number two, and most critically, what is the form of opposition we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years? Press releases attacking the APC. That's opposition. You have no counter-arguments, you have no detailed presentations, and you think, oh, people will see it and Nigerians will rise. Recall that when a state of emergency was declared in Port Harcourt, there was a press conference, joint press conference, APC, PDP, ADC, all of them got together and gave a lively press conference urging Nigerians to come out in the street and reject. That's tomfoolery. People you've not been in touch with, because 2 of us are in Abuja, we meet as big men, then we organize a press conference and expect that a farmer in the village who doesn't know us will not go to the farm, that the trader will not go to the farm, that the woman selling amala will not worry about opening her shop to go and do. To begin with, she doesn't even know what the whole thing is about. So you see, the concept of political opposition, if you look at what prevented the PDP from taking Lagos, is because the party had legs on the ground and below the ground. If you look at how eventually the PDP was chased out of the Southwest, it was political strategizing with legs on the ground. Speech making an environment where there's poverty, where there's the slightest encouragement for switching of camps. You think it is this thing. PDP is only giving people more reason to distrust it. We are not even sure who your executives are. Elections are coming in a couple of months, in less than a year. And you imagine that there's the remote possibility of you winning even in your own family? Let's get real.
All right. We'll get real when we return after the break. Professor Okey Ikechukwu, the Executive Director of Developing Specs Academy. Let's go on a short break. We'll continue the conversation. You're welcome back, and you're still watching Newsnight. We're live from Nigeria's capital in Abuja. Just before we continue the discussion, a story more about the People's Democratic Party, where the leaders of the party have begun fresh moves to reposition the party following Monday's judgment by the Court of Appeal on the party's protracted leadership crisis. An expanded meeting of the party's board of trustees, led by former president of the Senate, Adolphus Wabara, was convened in Abuja on Tuesday to deliberate on the implications of the judgment and chart a path forward for the opposition party. Among those present at the meeting are Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde, Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed, Party Chieftain Bode George, and his elder statesman Jerry Gana, and former Niger State Governor Babangida Aliyu, alongside other senior members of the party. Earlier, the National Caretaker Committee of the Wike-led group, chaired by Abdul Rahman Mohammed, described the appeal court's ruling as a validation of its leadership, saying preparations are underway to hold a national convention later this month aimed at stabilizing the party and strengthening the structures ahead of future elections. All right, let's continue the discussion now, the trajectory, that is the People's Democratic Party and the rest. But some school of thought are beginning to wonder the role of the judiciary in determining party matters. And the question will be that, has the judiciary become the central focus to political parties' management? And what are the implications of these? Does it really allow democracy to grow, develop, and the rest? We've seen situations where the court will pronounce, the man who came forth first in an election and the rest. The people's votes or voices don't count again.
Well, in any modern polity, you cannot abandon the judiciary. Or you may question some of his decisions, but certainly not all of them. Now, in the instant case, the Nigerian democratic enterprise recognizes the judicial process as part of that enterprise. You go to, you contest an election after joining a party, you win that election, another person feels you didn't and wants to contest. Several options are open to him. He can come and attack you in your house and probably succeed in killing the person and saying, well, now I've killed him, I'll take on. But the law doesn't allow that. He can make the alternative, he can make an alternative declaration and say, I'm actually the one who won the election, not minding what people are saying. But the law says you can't do that. There is an electoral body that can do that. You say, well, I don't accept the results from the electoral body. The next step is take it to an arbitrator, take it to an arbiter. The institution recognized to deal with such
Adjudicate.
things. Adjudication takes place, and the judiciary is institutionally, constitutionally, and even by tradition, designed
Constituted to
do that. Now, it's possible to question the judicial process. You can look to the integrity of outcomes. But people carry it so far as to suggest that the judiciary is unnecessary. It is not unnecessary. The concern, and which is what you say, in several cases where you have somebody who came forth, the voters took decisions, but the pronouncement of the court chooses a candidate not determined by the people. Now, there have those been records of errant judicial officers. Now, that's a different thing. Errant judicial officers is different from an errant judiciary as an institution. Now, when there's a lot of rot in a society, it permeates also all institutions. There are celebrated judges even in electoral matters. So, for me, the issue on the table is that you can abolish the judiciary, but in looking at the outcomes, you see that in many cases, or at least in some cases, there's concern about the integrity of the outcome. Now, that appears to undermine the judiciary's reputation in that regard. We can't take it away. But the question will then be, what do we do about it? Quite frankly, for me, there's nothing you can do other than go to court. Yes, and you know the meaning of that, go to court. The alternative is to take up arms. But the actual alternative, I see, the real solution is for people to vote and guard their votes. Vote. If you're going to declare results in the polling booth, now 90 of us voted for John, 8 of us voted for Andrew. And they get up in front of us to announce Andrew. You know it will not work. That officer will not leave the place, etc. guard your votes, ensure the integrity of your own officers. But the concern is, when it gets to INEC, they distort it. That is why both the electoral process and the likely judicial interventions later will have the challenge of credibility because of the law passed by the Senate. That caveat that allows a little room, window, they will convert that window into the gate of Jerusalem and allow everything to pass. Now, the window is supposed to allow a flower bed to go in, an elephant to enter, given what they have in that electoral reform.
Yeah.
And that's where the question arises. Where is the opposition?
And exactly the question I was going to ask you, particularly with the, the decimation, one would
That's
say,
the word.
ideologically,
Yes.
and whichever way, pundits want to look at it, of the People's Democratic Party. And do you fear an implosion even in the ruling All Progressives Congress? Everybody, all the big weights are going there. One or two, are we going to see a one-party state?
I don't know about one-party state, because when you're speaking of a state, even where there is only one party governing, there is intra-party friction, such that you're calling it. Look at when APC came to power under Buhari. 3 factions. Saraki faction confiscated the presidency without consulting anybody.
Of the Senate. Yeah.
Now, Buhari appointed ministers without recourse to anybody. People were angry about that. Rochas and his gang, I don't think they could find a foothold, among other things. Now, what am I leading up to? APC is welcoming a lot of decamping members of other parties. Before I even come to the question of why some of them are decamping, there's a primary question of accommodation. The optics and the psychology of it. Now, I am the governor, a PDP governor. You are an APC chairman. You're the head of the APC in my state. And I've been fighting you for a long time. We've been at daggers drawn. This is the enemy, and you say this is the enemy. Now I declare for APC. You step down for me, right? How will you be feeling? That's what the APC will still have to deal with. All this dancing about welcoming people. I mean, look at the last one in Adamawa. They didn't want the man to come. So that is an issue. Implosion, total implosion, no, but infighting, yes. And then what might yet become an issue on its own is, yes, are they decamping from ideological conviction? Is it true that some people that have questionable records in certain areas are getting cover for doing that? That's a question that must be answered eventually.
So there are 1,001 questions to interrogate about political movements, realignment, decimation of main opposition party, and where would Nigerian democracy go from here? Professor Okey Ikechukwu, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. Thanks very much indeed for coming to share.